All right, so again, my name is Marie Mackintosh, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for EmployIndy. I am flying solo today, although I've had a lot of help from my team to get this webinar set up. We have so many different folks moving in so many different directions here at EmployIndy, all trying to figure out how we can serve the population that, frankly, many of you are working with on a daily basis as effectively as possible. So the purpose of today's webinar is just to set the stage for EmployIndy. Well, this is going to be funny if I can't figure out how to move. There we go. To set the stage for what EmployIndy is about under Angie Carr-Klitsch's leadership over the last 6 months since she took over as the president and CEO, where our focus is moving forward. We also want to discuss what key sectors we're focused on and some in-demand occupational information we have, and also, talk about the target areas, the priority neighborhoods, and the demographics of those neighborhoods. Just all of this is in an effort to address some of the questions that came out of an adult education town hall meeting that was held by the Department of Workforce Development last month, where they were giving an overview of the upcoming competition for Title II adult education services under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. There is a provision in the work that DWD put forth that shows that the local boards and their local plans have to be considered as adult education providers are putting together their proposals. And so we were receiving a lot of questions about what our focus areas are and where people could find our local plan. And frankly, I thought it might be easier, rather than having lots of individuals comb through the local plan that we put together for the Department of Workforce Development, I thought it might be a little easier to just try to hit some of the highlights on what EmployIndy has been up to and where our focus areas are. There should be time at the end for questions, and I think I should be able to take those through the chat window, and so I guess I'll just go ahead and get started. So, EmployIndy, we are about driving growth in Indianapolis by focusing on innovative strategies that ensure all residents have access to employment and training services. Emphasis on all residents so that they can get the skills needed to enter into jobs that our Marion County employers have available. When we first came on board, when Mayor Hogshead appointed Angie and I in June, there was some question about where our focus areas would be. And so we called it an action plan while we worked with our board to embark on a strategic planning process. We are in the midst of that strategic planning process. But I think it's safe to assume that the things listed on this slide will sort of be core to the strategic plan that comes out at the end of June of this year, 2017. So many of you have likely heard us talk about these, or hopefully many of you have seen some of these slides and other occasions where we've had the opportunity to talk about what we're doing at EmployIndy. But very, very briefly, it is I would say the ABC, neighborhood prioritization, youth employment, career and technical education focus are all strategies of ours. And then the service coordination, leveraging other initiatives, institutions, and results-based accountability, those are ways that we want to go about doing business moving forward. So the ABC, Any Job, Better Job, Career approach is simply an approach where we want to make sure our career advising that's happening throughout the Work One system and with some of our neighborhood partners is focused on meeting clients where they're at, so that if they're in an adult education program and they have a part-time job, we can help them to get a better job, and if they are maybe get a certification that would go along with their foundational skills. And then we also hope to be able to move people through that continuum to really solid careers as well. So it's just about helping people get a job and then move them through that continuum. In terms of neighborhood prioritization, I think many of you have heard us talk about Mayor Hogstett's priority on working in some of the tougher neighborhoods where there's a high level of crime. It's not a surprise that there's also higher levels of poverty and unemployment in those same neighborhoods. So we've chosen different priority zip codes that reflect some of those sort of demographic challenges, and we are looking actively to partner with groups who have innovative strategies in those neighborhoods to help serve folks who are interested in getting better jobs and the training needed to get into some of those jobs. Youth employment is a huge focus of the mayor. I just came back from a U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in Washington, D.C., where many of the mayors were talking about their summer jobs program. So you may have heard us talk about Project Indy, which is the mayor's summer jobs program that we're helping to build out in partnership with Gypsy, and which is the Greater Indianapolis Progress Committee, and also with McCoy, the Marion County Commission on Youth, and those are great partners for trying to help at least 2,000 young people have some sort of summer employment, complete with an employability skills curriculum if we can, prior to their summer employment, so that they can get that A job, and maybe some of them have better jobs as well if we keep them in the pipeline year after year. And then career and technical education is certainly a focus of ours. We are partnering with the Region 5 Works Council on a work and learn mapping project, and we are interested in the opportunity for adult education to partner more holistically with CTE centers and leverage some of the work that's already happening in those CTE centers. So there's lots of opportunity there. And then you keep on hearing me say words like partner and leverage and results-based accountability. We want to talk about where we are as a community and have scorecards that reflect what kind of work our network of partners are doing to make a difference in our community. So we hope to be able to roll out some of those performance sort of measures in the coming months. We're not quite there yet on some of that. So that is an overall picture of what we're trying to do at EmployIndy. In the last year, we sent this out to a number of stakeholders right before the end of the 2016 calendar year. We have actively worked to make more investments in community organizations. There were a number of community organizations who received funding from us for out-of-school youth programming this past fall. And we have also been able to secure additional funding, particularly in that space of serving opportunity youth, which of course has a big overlap with the adult education population. So we're excited about some of our career services investments. You've heard me talk a little bit about some of the strategic changes that we've made. We have a very engaged board of directors who are actively helping us tackle some of the tough problems that we face. And they're in the middle of helping us with our strategic planning process. So we are excited too about the work that our employer business solutions team is doing and the relationships that they have built with employers, and we think we can leverage that to really serve the adult education community and the broader community more effectively in the coming years. To that end, where are we trying to head? So I like to call these our big opportunities. We talked a little bit about some of them a minute ago, but certainly youth employment is a big opportunity, a big focus for us. We do believe that there are roughly 30,000 young adults in Marion County who are disconnected from education and employment. We're interested in reconnecting many of them. We serve at the moment through our network of partners, I would say less than 1,000 individuals. That's not including, by the way, what adult education classes are being conducted, but where EmployIndy has made direct investments. So with our Youth Build program or with the network of providers called the Youth Employment Services Providers, if we were to count up all of those individuals who have been engaged in receiving some career advising or career coaching services, it's less than 1,000. So we have a long way to go to try to help move more youth into employment, help them to see the relevance and have some hope about what their future might be in Indianapolis. Likewise, we have a lot of opportunity within what we like to call our ABC categories. So we do have a lot of adults, 80,000 residents who are unemployed or underemployed, and we are interested in, we also put that word untapped because there are some adults who have just completely disengaged from the labor force. They're not really looking for jobs, but they should be because they are in the right age demographic where they have a long time before they would be old enough to, retire, that sort of thing. So we're interested in trying to find unique ways to re-engage that population. This would be where some of our work with Carrier and Rexnord, I'm sure you've heard about some of those dislocations, starts to come into play, where we're trying to figure out how we take folks who have some skill and help them to find other opportunities when their jobs are going away in Indianapolis. And then, of course, that neighborhood prioritization remains a huge focus for us as well, where 30% of Marion County residents live in those disinvested areas. So that I like that it says the year ahead. This is like multi-years ahead, okay? So there's a lot of work to do for years to come in trying to tackle some of these complex issues. I wanted to share a graph I really like as we start to talk about education. Not a graph, I guess an infographic, if you will. When we start to talk about education and the impact that it can have, I think it's important to keep in mind that if at the end of the day what we're trying to do is help individuals find good jobs, there are so many places in the pipeline, according to USA Funds. This is where I got the infographic from some of their research, but there are so many places in the pipeline where people fall out. And of course, this webinar is focused on just that first part of the pipeline where 100 students start high school and roughly 81, these are nationwide numbers, of course, but roughly 81 will graduate from high school. That's a little lower if you were to look at like IPS's numbers here in Marion County, but we hover somewhere right around that like 75 to 85 number, depending on which district we're talking about. And then you look at how many young people then go on to pursue bachelor's degrees. And there's another huge opportunity because we got lots of people who might have a high school diploma and no other training, and they don't necessarily need to go for that bachelor's degree. We all know that there's lots of occupational credentials out there that could help people get reconnected more quickly into the workforce with just a little bit of guidance. And then it continues on to show that there are many who don't graduate with a bachelor's degree, and then out of those who do, what we might qualify as a good job, which is, I presume, according to USA Funds, and the presentation where I saw them talk about this, they're talking about, where people can earn a decent wage. That's what 10 will find a good job is referring to. So clearly there are many places where EmployIndy is interested in working with partners like adult education partners to affect that pipeline in a positive way. We think that the way we can go about that, there's a lot of research done before I came on board, and Angie, Brooke Huntington and her team at EmployIndy did a lot of work on an initiative called Hire Up that really, I think, galvanized the business community and helped them to understand some of the issues at hand around our technical talent skills gap in Marion County. But a lot of the information that came out of this won't be a surprise, I think, to most of you. But it is hard to do it well. The how we do it is a lot more difficult to map out and create systems around than the what we need to do. So nonetheless, I do think it's important to hit on what it is we need to do. We believe that if we can encourage residents to make smart choices on their career paths, so adult education providers start talking about the top career paths in Indianapolis, make sure that students are making those choices when they come through your doors during orientation. I think it's really important. We're trying to figure out more ways to systemize that with our partners who are doing career advising, but help them to choose a career path that's going to be in demand. make sure we understand what skills matter to employers, and then help our students to earn those skills, and then help them connect into jobs, is entering the talent highway, understanding that they might start at an entry-level job but be able to work on to better jobs. And again, you'll see that ABC mentality built into that talent highway idea. So it's a lot easier said than done, but we do think that these are the basic components to starting to address that leaky pipeline. Simultaneously, it's always important, I think, for this group to keep in mind that when you look at job openings overall in Indiana, and this is certainly representative in Marion County as well, that there are a lot of middle-skilled jobs that don't require 4-year degrees or even 2-year degrees. Certainly the middle skill and the high skill jobs are continuing to increase. So are low skill, to be honest. And we are okay with, again, people getting into some of those basic A-level jobs. We just want them to understand where they might be able to make better wages in the future as well. So I think it's also important when we're talking about skills to mention employability skills. I was having an interesting conversation just this morning with a colleague who was talking about how they're putting most of their folks through a certified business professional coursework, and they may not actually earn all of the modules of this particular certification, but they found that when they're trying to promote candidates who are job ready to employers, that employers are pleased to see that they have this kind of certification. And it's things like business etiquette. It's very basic employability skills that, frankly, a population that has many barriers needs to be able to show, individuals need to be able to show that they have those employability skills if we really want them to be able to get employed. And so all of that is important, and the Department of Workforce Development is paying attention to this as well. They have put out posters. I took a screenshot of the poster that it's not obviously a complete screenshot, so apologies for that, but you can look on DWD's website and find a list of all of the employability skills. And in fact, our team can get you these posters if you would like to make sure that they're up in your various locations so that students can see the different types of skills that Indiana employers are saying that they need to have. And it's everything from, having a good work ethic and mindset about the work that students need to come and do, to, making sure that they know how to show up on time, to understanding resource allocation and having, perseverance and knowing how to manage stress. I mean, it's a very diverse mix. And anymore, it's very interesting when we have conversations with employers. Sometimes this is almost more important to the employer than the occupational credential, because they believe they can teach that technical skill in some instances, not all, but they don't think they can teach some of these employability skills. I think it's a real opportunity for the adult education community to think about the curriculum that you're teaching and to make sure that you are hitting on these employability skills. We would be looking for that sort of thing to align well with our local plan. So then to like the sort of nitty gritty of which sectors we focus on, I don't think any of these are going to be a huge surprise to you. This is again work done from the higher up work, but it's very reflective of the state and where Indiana is as a whole. We still believe that advanced manufacturing is a key wealth driving sector, as is healthcare, technology, life sciences, and logistics. You can read these bullet points as well as I can, but there is a huge percentage of job opportunities that fall into these 5 sectors. So if we start to break them down just a little bit, what you see here is just a snapshot of some of the information that we have, but I think it's instructive as you're working to build out your proposals. We talk a little bit about if we're looking at the manufacturing sector, you can see that the jobs that were available in 2015 were 92,000. That's already above the national average. We don't expect a lot of growth. In fact, in Indianapolis, it's fair to say we're seeing some negative outcomes because of some of the facilities that are shutting down, like the carrier facility. Although one line is staying open, but they are moving many jobs still to Mexico, as is Rexnord and some other big manufacturers. Well, not big, but there have been other dislocations as well that haven't made the headlines as much as those two. But nonetheless, it is still an area that is growing, particularly in the small to medium-sized enterprises. And when you look at the skills that matter, I think that's an important thing for the adult education community to keep their eye on, because there are opportunities to tweak curriculum or to focus partnerships on, not just occupations and trying to help someone to become a machinist, but to make sure whoever you're partnering with has curriculum that addresses some of the skills that we say matter. So I don't think, I think CNC machinists, operators, welders, inspectors, these types of jobs, assembly line jobs, they still exist. You can see the difference in wages. So I think, this is relatively self-explanatory. At the end, again, I'm happy to come back and answer specific questions about any of these sectors and the snapshots that we're showing you, just to give you, again, an idea of where we want to focus our efforts. In healthcare, we are, again, above the national average in terms of the number of jobs in I believe this wasn't actually Marion County. I believe this was the entire region, by the way. So Marion County plus Region 5, so Regions 12 and 5 together. I think patient care coming out as the skills that matter is something to pay attention to. The scheduling, the case management, the amount of opportunities that I have heard anecdotally exist for those who, earn that patient support sort of basic certification, or not just a CNA, but certainly a CCMA. People who are medical assistants don't have a lot of trouble finding jobs. Certainly CNAs don't have trouble finding jobs. We just have trouble making sure that people who have a CNA are interested in staying in that job, or helping them to understand what other opportunities exist. So, but when you look at the top occupations, those are all, the majority of those, minus the registered nurses, all fall in that, that certification space. I suppose LPN and medical assistant requires a little bit more training than I know that it requires more training than the others, but all of those are achievable occupations for the population that we're working with. In the technology sector, there's certainly a lot of buzz. I just saw a New York Times article this morning about the tech industry and the growth of the tech industry in Indianapolis. And we probably have one of the bigger gaps here in technical skills needed to get into that industry. We do believe that we're partnering with IB Tech on their Tech Hire grant and working closely with them on trying to find cohorts of individuals who are interested in the very basic sort of help desk certification, and trying to get them just on that career ladder where they can earn, like $15 an hour, doing like Best Buy, Geek Squad type of work. Might be a good stepping stone before we move them into some of the harder programming opportunities that we know exist in spades at the moment. But you can see there that if you look at the occupations, they are higher level of like sort of cognitive ability, I think, types of occupations. Still though, many of them wouldn't require a 4-year degree. Certainly in the IT industry, it's interesting because if you can show that you have the right set of skills, I think that they take many individuals on without having to have all of that formalized training. In life sciences, we find a mix here that sort of in my mind, when we're talking about adult education, this intersects with manufacturing in a lot of ways. If you look at the occupations like packaging and filling machine operators or technicians, certainly quality assurance is an area that is interesting to me here. When you see that skills that matter, that validation skill, that's an interesting one. I think farm tech is probably not represented up here in top occupations, but certainly another certification where we think there's a lot of promise and a lot of opportunity to be able to place those individuals. So again, that's some ideas on where you might be able to focus career pathways in the life sciences space. And then we will never have enough truck drivers until everything becomes automated, as they were talking about at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting this week. And the job of truck driver someday goes away because trucks drive themselves down the road, which seems a little scary to me, but I do think that the technology is there. It's more about the likelihood of adoption of that technology. So there are other opportunities, though, well beyond just truck drivers from an occupational perspective in this space. When you look at how many jobs we have, 76% above the national average, they aren't jobs that we want to overlook. They are often lower paying, maybe A-level jobs for a lot of individuals. But if we can help people get basic forklift certifications, along with the basic Certified Logistics Associate certification, anyone who can do industrial maintenance and repair will be able to find jobs quickly in this space. So I think there are some opportunities for our students to have good paying jobs and longevity in a logistics career in Indianapolis. I just wanted to remind everybody that we are building out our business solutions team to be focused on understanding the talent supply that we have and helping to place those individuals into good jobs and to connect in more holistically with some of our partners at the community centers and certainly at adult education CTE centers. So there's more to come on the business solutions front, but we did want to just give you an overview of some of the work that our team has been doing up to this point. We do have, I think last year we worked with about 140 businesses to help place individuals into different occupations. And we also work closely with the city of Indianapolis on certain economic development initiatives that can lead to on-the-job training opportunities and all different kinds of things for some of the individuals that might get hired. So just a heads up that we are in that space and that we hope to be able to take all of these adult education students and community center students and our Work One participants and those who are the job ready, help them to get connected into the workforce so that all of you aren't individually having to go out and build all of those relationships separately. Although that's okay too. We would love to leverage those with you as well where it makes sense. And then, so part of my job, if I go back to what the Department of Workforce Development was asking local boards to do, is to talk about, where career pathways, where we might be interested in seeing career pathways be built out. But our other job is also talk about, who we think needs to be served in adult education classes. And, we had just a couple slides from some of the work we've done with our board that I thought might be interesting to all of you to just have this data available to you. So we usually hit home the poverty rate in Marion County in particular as compared to Indiana or to Region 5. It is, 1 out of every 5 residents in Marion County find themselves in poverty. And we really hope we believe there's a direct correlation in many instances to education levels and employment levels associated with that. So we're hopeful to try to be able to affect some of these individuals who have been living in multi-generational poverty with better opportunities through our network of partners. So particularly if we circle back to our target neighborhoods and you look at those who don't have high school diplomas just in the targeted neighborhoods, that's about 18,000 individuals in the 5 zip codes where we have a focus. And if you look at all of Marion County, there's 90,000 individuals. Obviously, we don't have that 18 to 24 number in here because it was a hard demographic number to put together, but there's more in that space as well. So, if we add the 30,000 on, we're talking a lot of individuals who could use our services. And I know that in Region 5, adult education, I want to say, there are others on the phone who would know this number better than me, but I think that at the moment, 5,000 or 6,000, maybe 7,000 are served through the adult education services. So I guess my message here is that there are plenty of individuals out there who could benefit from our services. I think a key component of your proposals will be, how are you recruiting them and finding them and getting them to engage in your programming? And I suspect that if we focus on making sure that individuals understand what types of job opportunities they might be able to have as a result of participating in your adult education services, that might entice more individuals to be a part of the program. So I think with that, I think that's my last slide. So perhaps I hope that this is helpful. Perhaps the easiest thing to do now is to open it up for questions. So either in the chat box, or if you can if you want to try to shout out your question through the phone, if you happen to be on the phone line, that'll work too. Thank you. Any questions?
Renee Arkin.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. We were just wondering when this PowerPoint will be available, or are you planning on sending this out?
Oh, yes, sure. We can send it out after the presentation today to everyone who was on the email list. So Polly Redmond just asked that question too. Will we send this presentation out via email? Happy to do that. We've also recorded this webinar, so somehow we're going to make sure to put the webinar up on our website or something. We'll send it out to everyone who is on this webinar too.
Thank you.
No problem. Other questions? I'm just checking the chat window to make sure I didn't miss anything else. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, I mean, most of you know how to reach me anyway. I am pleased to be able to give you back a little bit of extra time. So thanks very much for listening in. Oh, wait, here is a question. Let's see. We talked about adult ed providers incorporating employability skills in their curricula. Are any providers using WIN? Okay, so I don't know the answer actually for the Marion County providers who are current providers, but I do know that WIN is a system that is available to most, well, really, I think most anyone to take advantage of. It's offered through the Department of Workforce Development, and I believe they have like a soft skills curriculum built into it. I don't know much more about it than that, but I do think, just to reiterate the question and the point, having some articulation, I think in the law, in adult education, it's often referred to as, excuse me, workforce preparation. And I think that the more you can tie employability skills into your proposal and how you intend to make sure your students are receiving like some help on becoming more employable, the stronger your proposal would likely be my guess. At least, certainly from my perspective, that's the case. I should also probably use this moment, because I'm sure that there are folks listening from the Department of Workforce Development, and many of you probably know that I used to be the director of adult education at the Department of Workforce Development. I have no insider knowledge of DWD's plans for the RFP and their release of that RFP. I have been disengaged there for the better part of 6 months now, so I know that there were some plans in the works before I left, but I think they've had to make a lot of adjustments based on some of the laws and regulations that came out. So I don't have any insider knowledge, but I do think that incorporating employability skills from our perspective is really critical to having a quality service delivery approach. Let me see. I don't think there are any other questions. Thanks, John, for putting out winlearning.com. All right. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for your time this afternoon, and I'm sure I will be seeing many of you in the coming weeks. So thanks very much. Bye-bye.